Hi guys, welcome. I'm going to show you guys how I made this Murloc. He's a pretty cool guy, he's riding a boar, and I hope you guys enjoy the video. Okay, so I found this 3D model of a Murloc, and he had all these accessories on him. He wasn't that fully defined. It looks like a very low polymer model. He was in a whole different position as well. So one of the first things I did is went in there, fixed a little bit of the topology, as well as rigged him so I can change the position, right? Because I wanted him to be riding this boar that you just saw. So I separated all the assets, right? The teeth were a little bit too thin, there's a slew of different things. And then I just added more polymer, made them more defined in certain areas, right? Added more faces. You'll see later down the line, instead of having like two toes, I added a third. And off to the side, I do have a bunch of references, right? The muscular definitions of other animals. So I found these two models online. They're a little bit low definition. And I was like, all right, I think I can work with these. I had somewhat of an idea. I didn't know what type of weapon he should have. I don't know if he was going to have like a huge axe. I didn't know if he was going to have a shield. But Murlocs are generally what we've seen in a lot of fantasy games. They're very primal. So they're not exposed to that much technology. So I try to keep it simple and just made a little axe, swung in with some leather straps, and calling it a day. So earlier you just saw me once again using that rigged model that I put onto this 3D model. And now I'm going back to just adding more definition to this character. And I have a shape key within Blender that I have him in a A-frame. So it's easier for me to sculpt on him, because it would take a lot longer if I get to his final position and then I just start sculpting one arm, and rather than using symmetry where I only have to sculpt one leg and then the other leg is also sculpted. So I would just increase my workflow if having an A-frame, pretty much. And in doing this, I can further change him if I want him in a different asset. Like let's say a client wants me, instead of him riding a boar, he's fighting a dwarf, right? So it's easier for him to change. So that's why I have him in this position right now. So once again, I'm also looking at references off to the side of real life animals, right? Toads, other creatures that are a little bit on the slimy or lizard skin tone or skin type. And just giving him a little bit more definition. Later down the line, I do want to do a multi-res modifier. So some of these sculpted areas are a little bit well defined. I didn't show it of me fixing the retopology because there was a bunch of triangles and in some of these quad locations, right? So in some of these locations where, he's going to bend the arm in a particular way, clipping may occur. So I just got in there on the edit mode and cleaned that up. So I'm not trying to go for a super hyper realistic view. Like I still wanted to give him like a little bit of a toon image, but doing this, giving him a little bit of muscle definition brings him to life. And if you're wondering how did I find a 3D model online, I searched it on Google. I was like 3D asset of or STL file of whatever type of model you're trying to look for. And in doing so, I found one, used a quad remesher, right? Multi-res modifier on top of that, and a shrink wrap modifier on the old sculpted base, so I can retain some of that definition. And you can see here, I've had a file of alphas of rocks, metals, and different folds that I'm using just to details within the skin, make it look like he's more bumpy, like he's been through things, more exposed to sunlight or damage. Here is a simple underwear in which I'm using proportional editing to put it in the right location. You can see that I skipped a couple steps here and there. And I didn't really record me sculpting the boar or creating the axe, but it's just simple lines, strides. For the boar, I just did the wave in the hair. I made it easy for this Murloc to grab the boar hair, so it looks like as if he's guiding this boar to wherever location they're riding to. Once again, I'm using alphas here to put definitions within this asset. And here I have a little bit of some artifact inside the underwear that I will fix later on. For some of the teeth and the tongue, I gave it more definition. I changed the angle. I made it look like my own. I sculpted it more, gave it more polygons as well, more faces to have more details with. Once again, using alphas to get a quick definition. You could find really good assets on CG Trader. Is one of the main libraries that I like going to. There's like a wealth of knowledge in there. You could get base models they can easily work on, right? If you are struggling in creating your own human asset or humanoid, there's plenty that you can go on there, download, and then you could just build on there. And with whatever references you have off to the side, you could create your own creature and or human version of yourself. Whether you want to rig it or put it in like a virtual reality. Like you can tell here, the boar retopology wasn't the best. I used a smart unwrapping, but there's methods on here on this substance painter where you could have the worst topology in the game, and there's going to be artifacts peeking through, but if you could paint over it, you could make some magic, some wonders on here. Right now I'm going through the baking process, and you can tell that the Murloc and the base in which they're both standing on are a little bit more solid. Here I'm doing a combination of adding certain skins onto the topology of the boar. Then I'm adding a, how do we say, a black mask and isolating certain areas in which, oh, I only want this certain material on his hands, on his mane, on the eyeball itself. Usually at this part, the workflow process is all up to you. You can go crazy with it. You can follow your references. You cannot. You can break the laws of physics. It doesn't matter. It's your own art piece. Of course, there's a bunch of steps that I completely jumped over. This is like an overview on how I created this little guy. A little bit of war paint on the board, right? CG Boost also has a great course for substance painter, in which I learned most of my tips and tricks on there. You know, creating a black mask and then doing a paint layer, using different brushes to get different effects like dust and rust on certain materials, giving it just a little bit of reality, like bringing it in. Oh, here is a spot in which I did mess up. So I didn't know that the material that I was using for his hands and feet made it translucent. And I didn't realize that until after I did the whole rendering turntable video of this Murloc riding a boar. It's okay. It's barely noticeable until you keep on rewatching the turntable video. You're like, oh, his hands are see-through, his feet are see-through. That's okay. We learn from our mistakes, and next time I won't use that certain material when painting on objects that I didn't want to look translucent. Here I am setting up the lighting, and we're almost done, and I will show you another turntable on how it looked like. I also did a reel of this. It's a more fast-paced of it. But once again, thank you again for watching. Hopefully you got a little bit of insight or inspiration to make your own Murloc, or find your own 3D model that you can cannibalize, make a little bit better, push the limits, add more polygons. But that being said, thank you again for your time.